program is in its third year now. Each year we put call to artists out, and we select 5 artists with a jury of 8 arts and environmental professionals. Once the artists are selected, they're trained in an orientation and safety training by Recology, and they are allowed to get any material that they want from the floor of the dump, basically. They'll do this for approximately 6 months, and then we require them to have 10 pieces ready for a formal art exhibition.
I went to the transfer station thinking that I wanted to find the things that nobody was looking for. Because I kind of had the idea that that other artists might want to find the diamond in the rough, but I wanted to find the rough in the rough and see if I could make it into a diamond.
So Glean is a partnership between Metro, Recology, and Crackpots. Our mission is to prompt people to think about their consumption habits, inspire creative reuse, and initiate larger conversations with the public about the waste problem that we have and ways that we can solve it.
Things that have been most useful for me to find are any kind of adhesive. Wax has been a great adhesive. Joint compound turns out to be a pretty good adhesive. And then cement and expanding foam are turning out really well.
Our region generates 2.1 million tons of waste every year. That's enough to fill the Rose Garden 15 times.
For us, that means loading it up into compactors and pushing it into a truck and hauling it 34 tons at a time, 153 miles away to a landfill. Climate change is an issue that's at the forefront of the news these days, and it's something that Metro is very engaged in addressing, and waste plays a huge role in climate change. The things that we bury in landfills that are organic in nature, any kind of yard debris, food, wood, paper, when those things decay, they give off methane gas that goes into the atmosphere. It contributes to climate change.
We've got to make every effort that we possibly can to reduce waste.
Gleaning out at the transfer station, to be honest, has a very wide range of emotions, from fascination to disgust. It depends on what you're finding, what you're standing in or near, and seeing what you're watching people offload. It's disgusting both in all the smells from the anonymous bags of garbage that you kind of want to know what's inside, but you know you really don't want to know what's inside.
Well, for the average resident in the metro region, once you put your organics in your green cart and your recyclables in your blue cart and your trash in the trash can, it's Metro's responsibility to manage all that stuff and make sure it's handled responsibly.
Crackpots is a nonprofit that has been in existence for over 13 years. Our primary mission is to, much like the Glean program, get people to look at their waste creatively and have an impact on the amount that is actually sent to the landfill.
So my glove box is full of pink slips from the transfer station that shows weights of how much I've hauled out of there. It's probably well over a ton I've hauled out of the transfer station. It's now in my shop, my garage, and outside.
Recology is an employee-owned resource recovery company based in San Francisco, and we believe that reducing the consumption of natural resources and limiting landfill production is imperative. And innovative programs like the Artist in Residence program in San Francisco and the Glean program in Portland highlight Recology's commitment to protecting the environment.
So this piece uses barbecue rotisserie motors, a fireplace screen, like a campfire, a humidor, a really large quartz crystal magnifying glass lens, and some electronics.
Okay, so the Metro Central Transfer Station facility is a large facility. It's over 10.5 acres of space that receives solid waste from homeowners, businesses. We receive it, consolidate it, process it, pull out reusable waste, and the residual goes to a landfill. A good portion of it goes to processors and composting facilities.
This is made of 2 different kinds of fencing material. The orange construction fencing and this green fencing, which is some kind of landscape fencing. So I found these banners and I sliced them all up and wove them through the layers of fencing. When I saw the fencing, I thought of weaving.
So when we're talking about resources and what it is that we're pulling out of the waste stream, we're talking about urban wood waste, metals, plastics, resources that truly should not be landfilled, things of real value.
I wanted to take as much of it as possible. I got 2 full truckloads of this wood. And the idea that I have for that is to build about 2.5, 3 foot tall pedestals for all of the work. And once the wood has been used for the show as the pedestals, I'd like to repurpose it, flip it over, and use it as garden beds in the community garden that I work with.
Glean supports this effort with one word. It's simple. It's awareness.
I wanted to get involved with the Glean project because I've always used reclaimed lumber. It's something that's always been important to me. Well, when I'm going to the transfer station, I'm looking for solid blocks of wood, usually old wood that's about 100 years old, something from old growth, which has fewer knots and just long, straight, beautiful grain.
With awareness, people are more inclined to think about their waste before they just haul it to a transfer station like this. They might take a 5-gallon bucket and set it aside and put metal scraps in it or something like that, or maybe put their wood off to the side, and when they get a truckload, then bring it down so it's easy for us to recover.
Recology is thrilled that we were able to partner with Metro and Crackpots to create a program that was similar to the one in San Francisco, but obviously with its own Portland character and flair.
What we're looking for is somebody who can find something strange and different and oftentimes very difficult to adapt, and yet use their creative genius to turn these things into art.
After a few days at the transfer station, rummaging through these mountains of garbage, a very magic thing happened and 8 sheets of aluminum siding showed up. So I spent a couple weeks making some mountains, some garbage mountains.
When you're gleaning from the transfer station, you're kind of at the mercy of what shows up. And also, a lot of it is what your eye catches too.
I found the rusted screen and it really spoke to me about grassy hills in late summertime.
I found this book called Small is Beautiful at the transfer station, and I really wanted to do something with it. So I cut it apart and put it into this fabric window shade, so the entire book is in this piece.
I started working with wood when I was a kid, actually, in Kentucky, whittling with my grandfather. That was my first experience carving wood. I took that up, and that's where I learned the basics of how to handle wood and how to work with the blade.
Well, I became an artist really early because I was apprenticed at age 16 to a sculptor. I don't know that I would have gone that direction otherwise, but everything was sculpture after that.
As I've matured in this realm of fiddling with vintage and new technology and how things move, it brings me to think about how one interacts with objects, and when you're in the same space as an object that does something, how does that change your perception on an object?
So I've been fooling around with all these wallpaper samples that I gleaned and making these sort of mosaic-like patterns on gleaned plywood.
The figures that I'm working with can come from an inner place but I feel like that inner spot for everybody, once you strip away enough layers, we all have commonalities.
It's a shame to throw something away that has so much design energy and work that's gone into it by another person. So it's fun to try and save something and give it new life.
If I lived in Italy and it was the year 1713, I would be living next to a mountain made of marble that wouldn't be all Swiss cheesed yet from everybody taking the marble out of it. That would be the material of choice. That would be the right material for that time and place. It was. But now, here, in this time, the right material is a reused material.
What I like about Glean and why I think Glean is important is that these artists bring an incredibly brilliant and new perspective to the issue of waste. And for me, being an old hat in this business, I find that perspective refreshing.
I would love for us to be the art project that everybody wants to participate in, to have the exhibition that every year people can't wait to attend.
We have a lot more that we can do to reduce waste. Who knows, maybe even one day we have no waste as a region.
I want for people to be so impacted by this message that at some point maybe it gets a little more difficult to do what we do because everybody's on board and diverting their waste.